Hi, everybody, and welcome to 3 and 30. My name is Matt Garwood, and we have a colleague of mine, Bert, joining us today.
Hi, everyone.
We are super excited to talk about Blackboard assignments and how Turnitin also works with Blackboard assignments. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to share my screen so we can get started. So again, thank you for coming to our CTEL 3 and 30. Just a little bit about 3 and 30 and what that is. This is a series of webinar-style drop-in sessions exploring a wide variety of topics related to teaching and learning at Georgian. Each 30-minute session will include 3 tangible tips and or takeaways for application. So today, the foundational concept that we're going to be reviewing is Blackboard assignments. So we do have 3 topics that we're going to focus on. And our first topic is going to be something that I'm going to cover, which is going to be assignments for individuals and groups. We're then going to move on to Blackboard Rubrics, where I'm going to talk about the Blackboard side of creating rubrics. And then Bert's going to jump in and talk about the difference with Turnitin rubrics. And then Bert will take takeaway number 3 and talk about the Turnitin integration with Blackboard and how those 3 tools work together. So what I'm going to do here is we're just going to stop sharing and we'll get Blackboard all set. And we're going to talk about how to create an assignment within Blackboard. So again, some of you might say, I already know how to do this. It's a pretty straightforward process. Yes, that definitely is the case. But what I do want to walk through is just kind of starting from the beginning on how to create that assignment. So what we're going to do is you can create a Blackboard assignment in any area, any content area in Blackboard. So whether that's a course information tab, a weekly learning tab, an assignments tab, really any item along that left-hand side, you can create a assignment as long as you have these 4 options along the top, which is your build content, assessments, tools, and partner content. So these are your really content area creation tools. When we hovered over the assessments option, we're going to scroll down to where we see assignment. When we click on assignment, it's going to pop open a text box and an area for us to name our assignment. These the text box options that are listed here are the same throughout Blackboard. So you're able to do the same thing whether you were creating an announcement, creating an item, creating a file, uploading a file, whatever that might be, you can do so the same options in this area. Now, maybe just, for assignment purposes, let's call this one assignment number 4, because I believe I have 3 other ones that I've already created in this shell. And then under your instructions here, this is really where you can create any instructions for the students. So maybe you have a Word document, a PDF of instructions for your students. Great, that's not a problem. You can paste them in here. Or maybe you want to attach a file. Maybe it is something that, again, you don't want to just paste the documentation here. You want to actually upload a file so your students can access that. So again, it could just be a PDF, a Word document, whatever that might be. When you do click on that upload a file, it will bring open your computer. I'm just going to go to my downloads and just grab any document that I found there, which is obviously not an actual assignment document, but pretend this was our document that we did want to attach. You can see you have your file name. You can see that you have the link title, which you can change. So if you did want that to appear differently for your students, you can change that right in Blackboard here. And just know that now your file has been attached. If we scroll a little bit further down, you'll then see a due date here. A due date is not something that is necessary. There is no little orange asterisk beside that due date, so it's not something that you have to have, but it is nice to have that listed clearly for your students. The students will still be able to submit after the due date, but they will be marked late. And when we mean by marked late, it doesn't mean the system is going to dock 10% or 10 points. It's just going to physically mark it as late. So you can then determine what that late, mark would be removed from that total points or from that grade itself. So let's just say that we're going to set February 19th, which is tomorrow, as our due date, and we're going to set the end of day. So that's really all you have to do is just click that little calendar and then select any time that you wish. I'm just choosing end of day for ease there. Under our grading area, this is an important piece to focus on. This does not mean what the assignment is weighted at. So there is a difference between your weighting and your points possible. Your points possible could be 10. It could be 25. It could be 45. It's really whatever you are grading that assignment out of. I normally like to say putting 100 there is pretty simple because then you know if you're giving the student 80% that they're getting 80 points. So it's nice and simple and there's no confusion. Just keep in mind that the weighting, so you're saying, well, this is worth 10%. So how do I do that? Do I put 10 in here? You could put 10, but that is not where you would put that weight. That would be done later on in the grade center under your weighted total column. Okay, so keep that in mind. We are going to talk about rubrics, but I am going to come back to that in our next area. So just hold tight on that front. Now, next we have a couple different options here. If you are doing this as an individual assignment, meaning each student is going to submit their own individual assignment and this has nothing to do with group work, then you would just ignore these options right here and keep on moving down to your availability. Now, if you were going to set this up as a group assignment, you would want to click on these options and look at what we have within our submission details tab. When we click on submission details, you can see that the default is individual submission. That means if I am the faculty member and Bert is my student, Bert would be able to individually submit an assignment along with everybody else in that class. Now, if I click group assignment, which no groups have been created so far, that is okay. What will happen is the groups will then be attached to that specific assignment. You would have to do that manually. In this case, we have not created those groups yet because we are going to walk you through how to do so. But if you wanted to, I could then place Bert in a group along with a couple other students, and then I could place a variety of other students in another group, et cetera, so then only one person within that group has to submit that assignment. So if Bert was in a group with 4 other students, and Bert was going to be the one that was going to be submitting the assignment on behalf of the group, he could do so, and it would show as a submission for all 4 other students. You also would only have to grade 1 submission. So the submission that Bert would submit via Blackboard would be graded, and the second you put in the grade for him, then what's going to happen is that same grade is going to appear in the other 4 students' columns. So keep that in mind as well. So for now, we're going to leave this one as an individual assignment, an individual submission, just for now, until we go and create those groups. Now, keep in mind, you can change a individual assignment to a group assignment after the fact if you want to, which is actually what we're going to be doing. We always normally suggest that you create those groups first, but in this case, we are going to revert back to this after we complete this for an individual submission or individual assignment. If you do want the availability set, you can do so. Again, it's very similar to that due date that is listed above. Okay, so keep that in mind that if you would like this, all that's going to do is display it after the date. So the due date would still be there. So let's just say our due date is the 19th, which is tomorrow at the end of the day. We could then set maybe our display after today, and maybe we don't want this to be displayed until noon. That is just going to appear after that date. You don't need a display until. If you wanted to, you could match it up nicely with that due date, right? So if you want to, we've now matched it up so that this assignment is going to disappear as of 11:59 tomorrow evening. So then the students cannot submit it late. Okay. We're then going to click submit. And then when we scroll to the bottom, we're going to see our assignment here. We can see that we have a file, which is that file we initially attached. And then when the students click on it, they can see the due date is tomorrow, February 19th. There's 100 points possible. And then this is where they would go and submit. So your students would browse a file or upload a document, whatever that might be. Or if there is some issue and they're not able to submit the document that they have created, they can write the submission. So they could copy and paste the entire submission from their Word document, their PDF, whatever that might be, and submit that directly here. Some users that are, using a Mac, sometimes with Pages and those Mac specific systems sometimes will not be accepted into Blackboard. So keep that in mind that it could also be just another file type or another device. If the student is having an issue, there really is no excuse in that sense because they can just copy the text and paste it. Now, sure, that is not as seamless. It's not as nice looking as a PDF or a Word document might be. So keep that in mind as well. But worst case scenario, at least the content can be submitted here. The students can also add comments. So if they did have issues submitting, they could leave a little bit of a note to that instructor as well, and then click submit. So that's really how you create that assignment for an individual student for an individual purpose. Now, what we're going to want to do is we want to turn that assignment that we already created into a group assignment. So I had mentioned that we need to create groups. Great. So how to do so is we're going to go, all right, to our users and groups area right here, and then we're going to click groups. And you can see I have no groups created at this time. What we're going to do is we're going to click create. When you hover over create, you have a single group option and a group set option. Both of them have self-enroll and manual enroll. So what a self-enroll means is the students would be enrolling themselves. So think of it in the student side and how they are going to see it. The self-enroll means I'm going to create a group and Bert is going to go in as a student and he's going to enroll himself in a group with 4 of his fellow classmates. Or manual enroll, where I am manually going to enroll Bert into a group that I have chosen for him to be a part of. So keep that in mind. Now with the group set, there's also a random enroll. And what the random enroll is going to do is it's going to randomly select every student in the course and put them in a group at random. So it saves you time from having to select each student to put them in a group if you are not specific and you personally as the instructor do not care if they are what specific groups that the students are to be enrolled into, then you can click that random enroll. Now, you might say, what is single enroll or single group and group set? A single group would be creating one single group. So you could do this 10 times. If you had 10 groups and you wanted to do a single group times 10, great. Or you can select a group set. And what that will do is it'll create 10 groups for you. So if you had, let's just say 100 students in your class and each group was going to have 10 students in it and you needed your 10 groups, it would create group 1 through 10 for you automatically. You could then indicate which type of group set that you want. Some people prefer to do them themselves and that's fine. In this case, we're just going to create one group and I'm going to manually enroll Bert. Or in this case, it won't be Bert, but theoretically it could be that student. So what we're going to do is we're just going to call this one group 1. And again, the description is not really necessary. If you are the ones that are enrolling, the students don't really need a description. What I do suggest, one little tip, is if you are going to have multiple groups for multiple assignments throughout the semester, call the group Group 1 Assignment 1. Or in this case, it's Assignment 4. Okay, that way you can keep track of the groups and which assignments that they're attached to, nice and easy. A lot of people will do one group for one group assignment and another group for another, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're going to have by the end of the semester, 10, 15, 30, 100 groups that you've set up, you want to keep them organized by assignment. So keep that in mind. We're going to see a couple options down here. These are all the defaulted options. In my opinion, it's better to keep them clicked. That just means you can use groups for wikis, journals, emails, discussion boards, blogs. If you never use those things and you never will need them, that's fine. It just means that that ability exists should you need to in the future. And then really the main thing we need to focus on is membership. And when we click on membership, this is where we're manually enrolling somebody. So I've enrolled my colleague Kate Quinn in this shell, and Kate is the only student I have enrolled here. So don't be worried. Don't say, oh, there's only one person showing. There is only one person enrolled in this course. you would have your entire class list, and then you'd be able to just scroll down and click the students that you wish. Again, in this case, I only have one to click, but you could choose however many you wish and click submit. Once you do that, it then shows that you have added, in this case, Kate to our group. Once we click submit, we then have our group created with one enrolled member. When we go back to our assignment, we scroll on down to the bottom, we click on the little drop-down arrow beside it, and we click edit. We scroll on down to submission details, and we change this to group submission. We now have a box that appears. This box did not appear before. Earlier we got that there is no groups notification. Now that is removed because we have created a group. What we're going to do is we're just going to click on the groups that we wish to add to this assignment and move it on over to selected. That means we're taking group 1 assignment 4 with Kate enrolled in it, and we're attaching it to assignment number 4, which is the assignment that we just created not long ago. Okay, you might say, why do I have to do this? Because again, as I had mentioned, you could have multiple groups and you need to attach specific ones to specific assignments. All we have to do is now click submit. One last thing before I do so, you can indicate the number of attempts. So you might say, well, why would I want multiple attempts? It could just be in the case that the students submit the wrong assignment the first time, it allows them to submit it a second time without you having to go in and clear it. So a suggestion of ours is 2 attempts, okay? And then you have your option here as to which one to grade. You can say last graded, highest graded. Normally the last graded attempt is the default, and that's the one that we keep. We then click submit, and now that group is set as a group assignment. One last thing before I move on to rubrics is the fact that if you then go into student preview, you will not be able to see that group assignment listed. That is because you are not enrolled in that group. Only the enrolled members in the course can see the group that is activated. If you go into student preview, your enrollment from a faculty is temporarily changed to a student. And what that means is you are put in that course for a quick moment as a student, but that student, you, is not enrolled as a user in that group that we just attached Kate to. So keep that in mind, that you go in student preview, you will not see the group. It is not a glitch, it's not an error. There are a couple ways that we can work around that we can discuss at a later date, but just keep in mind that moving forward. Now, quickly, I'm going to now move over to Blackboard Rubrics. The great thing about Blackboard Rubrics is they're really not that in-depth. They're not super involved, and they're pretty quick to create. When we click on Course Tools and we scroll on down, we're going to see rubrics listed here. You'll see I already have a rubric created. I've labeled it and named it a very similar structure, Rubric 1 Assignment 2, because again, you could have multiple rubrics for multiple different assignments. So keep that in mind, that always name that rubric if you can, and if you remember, associated to a specific assignment. Now, if you're using that same rubric for all of your assignments, then that's great, that's fine. What we're going to do is we're going to click on Create Rubric. One last thing to mention before we do so, you cannot just import a rubric that you created as a Word document. That import rubric button is a little bit misleading. You cannot just import anything that you wish. You do have to follow the structure, the template that Blackboard provides. So our suggestion is open up your old rubric or your rubric that's on a Word document or a PDF, click this Create a Rubric button, and then what you can do is you'll see the template that is provided here. You can then just copy and paste the material from your PDF or Word document into the rubric, template that is listed here, and that's going to help you. And then you can use this from now on. So we're going to call our rubric, let's just call this one rubric number 2. Okay, and as you scroll down here, you can see a few different options. You can add rows and add columns. Okay, it is defaulted with 3 and 3, so just know that that is the process that is laid out. You have your novice, your competent, and your proficient listed right here. You can also change the rubric type. So it does default 2%, but you do have points, point range, percentage, and percentage range. So keep in mind that you can adjust. So there's our percentage range that you would just do your ranges from, but I'm just going to leave our default 2%. Now, if you are having questions on how to physically create a good rubric, you're not worried about the technical side, but you're worried about what makes a good rubric. How can I ensure that my rubric will apply to my assignment? Please feel free to reach out to our Center for Teaching and Learning team. We have incredible faculty on staff that can actually walk you through and how to create a rubric. I'm more here for the technical piece and how to actually use the tool. But if you are beyond that step and you're looking to create that, please reach out to ctel@georgiancollege.ca for more information. Now, what you're going to do is always want that total weight to be weighted at 100%. And again, you can change the exact criteria that is listed on the rubric. You can add columns or remove columns, change the name of the headers. You can do all of that should you require. Once your rubric is set, you are going to click Submit, and now you'll have your rubric 2 created. Then what we're going to do is the last piece is we're going to just go back to our assignment, which is our assignment number 4. We're going to click Edit on that assignment. When we scroll down, remember how I mentioned associated rubrics was an option. When I click onto there, we have 3 options. We have Select Rubric, Create a New Rubric, and Create from Existing. We're just going to select a rubric. And there's our rubric 2 that we just made. Now, again, like the groups when creating a group assignment, you can create the groups first, you can create the rubric first and do this all at once. You don't have to keep coming back and forth. I'm just showing you how that looks beforehand and how it looks after once it's been created. We're going to click on our rubric that we wish to select and click Submit. Now you can see our rubric is there. It's going to be used for grading, and we can edit. We can also view the rubric itself or remove it. We also have this option here, and this is an important one. It defaults to not showing the rubric to the students, or you can change it to yes with rubric scores or yes without rubric scores. So keep in mind that if it is left as no, the students will not see this. So if you spend hours providing feedback within your rubrics, keep that in mind that if you do not select yes after grading, then the students will not see that. So keep that in mind. And then we're going to click Submit. And now we have a group assignment with a rubric attached. So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to pass it over to Bert. Bert is going to walk through Turnitin and how that integration works with Blackboard, and he'll also touch upon rubrics. So Bert, I will pass it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. So welcome, everyone. We're going to talk about Turnitin. We're going to briefly create a Turnitin assignment, and it's very similar to what Matt was going over in terms of creating a Blackboard assignment. I'm going to jump into a dev shell here just to give you an example. So Turnitin assignments can be created not in every single content area on the left, but any of those content areas like weekly learning or assignments where you have the 4 headings across the top, like what Matt mentioned. So for creating a Blackboard assignment, you would typically go into here and click on assignment. Turnitin is the same step, only just go down a little bit further and you'll see Turnitin assignment. So I'm going to click on this. Here we're going to keep with paper assignment. When you click on next step, it's going to be a lag time. It definitely takes a bit of time for it to load. So if you're thinking, oh, am I not doing this right, or did I miss a step? You haven't. It just takes a little bit of time. So in here, we're just going to put an example title, and I'll put number, I'll put a number sign beside it so that I don't get it confused with any of the other examples. Point value is an arbitrary number, so a lot of faculty like to use Turnitin for sheer, grading capabilities. There's a lot of great features in the feedback grading system that they have. So realistically, you could just put a 0 in here to use the grading features only. But if you're using it for like a regular assignment, then this can be, similar to what Matt mentioned, is it could be out of 10, it could be 25, it could be 100. For simple math, we'll just, make it 100. The next part here we're going to leave is checked, only allow basically Turnitin files or files that can be checked by Turnitin. So that way that we ensure that we get a clear similarity report. If you say allow any file type, then it's really allowing almost any file type, but it's not necessarily generating a similarity report to check for any kind of academic misconduct. Those file types that can be admitted, Matt and I both kind of agree that we prefer, or Blackboard, I should say, prefers PDF and Word document. If you go outside of those two documents, Turnitin and Blackboard still function, but not always. So if you're using like a Pages document, for example, from Mac, those aren't going to work. Sometimes if you're using a PowerPoint, students can submit PowerPoints and they can be checked by Turnitin, but it's only the text that's getting checked. It's not going to check any images, or if you have animation there, it's not going to function properly. So something to consider. Recommend that we stick with Word doc and PDF. Start date is when the Turnitin icon in Blackboard becomes available. So let's say it becomes available at 9 a.m. on the 18th this morning, and then February 25th would be the closing date. That would be the due date. The post date always confuses faculty. This is when any feedback or grading, marks, etc., that you've given to a student would become available. So let's say you wanted to, give yourself a couple weeks to mark an assignment. If the assignment is due on the 25th, let's say at least the 4th of March, give yourself a week. And then that way, everyone's marks and grades and feedback and whatnot are released on the same date. Here, we're going to click on optional settings, special instructions. I don't leave much in here. There's not a whole lot you can enter here. And in terms of your assignment instructions, they have to be posted as a separate document. So what we're creating here is merely the link or the Dropbox for students to submit their assignment. And the instructions for the assignment are going to be listed somewhere else. Here would just be something like, click, I usually say click I think it's the view/complete button below to submit your assignment. Usually I leave something like that, a quick note for the students so they know where to go to submit their assignment. Next, allow submissions after the due date. We like to leave this on. I'm not going to go into great detail on this, but it's important that we just say yes. The assignments that come in afterwards are going to be marked late, but you will see that and you'll know you'll have to work that out with your student as to how you want to grade that. We want to generate similarity reports. That's a yes. Usually if you're using Turnitin, typically we're using it for its similarity report feature. And then secondly here, generate similarity reports for student submissions. There are 3 different options. Typically we use immediately can overwrite reports until due date. This means that the student has, it doesn't say this for the student, but the student has 3 attempts that they can put in. They actually have more than 3 attempts, but what happens is if the student is submitting over and over again, trying to lower their similarity report number, it is going to cut them off and make them wait another 24 hours before they can submit any additional documents. So this is a great one. This also helps too if the student says, oh, I'm trying my best and I have a really high number. It helps them identify problem areas within their paper. The next few elements here, we're just going to leave as no. Basically, this says we don't want to exclude anything. We want to include everything in the similarity report to ensure that we captured as best we can everything. So you might have a higher number in this regard, but the higher number doesn't necessarily mean plagiarism. It just means that it's similar content. So you as a faculty need to go through and evaluate and say, okay, this person is quoted quite a bit, but have they quoted properly? Have they provided adequate citations? Have they given a correct APA, a reference list entry, etc. As we go down here, do we want to allow students to see similar reports? Usually we say yes. Reveal grade students to only on post date. Yes. That will ensure that everyone gets their marks at the same time. And then submit papers to standard repository. Yes, I would leave that on. We'll check these 3 and I will keep going. So this is where sort of the main focus here is. there are different types of rubrics, and now the rubrics that you get in Blackboard are not going to be the same as the rubrics that you get in Turnitin, so it can be a bit confusing. When I click on Launch Rubric Form Manager, you'll be taken to just a random rubric that Turnitin gives you. When I click on the left top item, sort of the menu button, and I click Create New Rubric, this will allow me to create a brand new rubric that I can fill in on my own. If I scroll down, though, you're going to see that there's different types of rubrics all the way through here that Turnitin has already provided. So if I click on one of those, it gives you some idea of what they look like. Now, I'm going to click on Create New Rubric, and I'm going to show you just a really basic version here. At the bottom, there are three types of rubrics in Turnitin. There's a percentage rubric, which basically measures, in this case, if you were wanting to balance these out, so 50%, and then it's divided up over here. So you could have 25, 25, 25, 25 instead of 100, etc. And then you would put in your scales. So this is a bit more of a not confusing, but it's a different style of rubric. And when you see it sort of play out, I recommend trialing it first. Before you go ahead and use it. The second style of rubric is a little bit more easy to understand, and that's a custom points rubric, in which each cell is allotted a certain amount of points. So you could have 1, 1, 1, or you could have 1, 2, 3, or you could have 1 and then 0, 0. It's really up to you. You can make it worth as many as you want. If you wanted to say, hey, I want to go, 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 10, the unfortunate part is that you would have to add 10 columns if you're only wanting to go up by single individual points. So that part is a little bit limiting. The next rubric is a qualitative rubric, and that means that there are no points associated to this. It's basically you're filling it in with your content, your criteria, and then what happens is when you go in to mark the rubric, you're literally clicking on these boxes, and you will highlight the box to give the student an idea of where they fall within the rubric. Are they a level 1, or are they level 3, a level 4, for example? And at the end of that, Turnitin just allows you to give an overall grade out of 100 or out of 50 or whatever points you want to give them. And so that's a bit more flexible, but maybe a bit more general as well from a student's perspective. So what I'm going to show you here, we're going to create a grading form. This is one of my favorites. I'm going to say yes. We're going to delete the existing rubric that's attached to this assignment that we're in. And I'm going to say example grading form. And when I click over here, this might be a rubric that you're familiar with, or style that you might look at. So content and research, organization and style. I'm just going to take these, so content and research, and I'll give you an example here. Go back, and I can put that description right into there. And then I can add sort of a general overview from my existing rubric back into my form. So organization and style, and I click back into there. And for now, I could do this for all of them. I'm just going to say, for the sake of time, let's just say there's only 2. That works for me. I can add additional ones. You'll notice that there's no points, though. So this is what's fun about this grading form, is it's simplifying everything for you. I'm going to click Save. Okay, we're going to click Close, and I call this example grading form. Remember the name because it may not attach. It doesn't, so I have to go and find it. Example, there it is, grading form. So now that it's there, that's good. I've chosen it. It's attached to this assignment. The next few steps are pretty simple. We want to allow Turnitin to use its grammar checking device, which is great technology. We leave it on advanced, and we usually say both US and UK dictionaries are allowed, or that's what they'll use. And then we say these are the things that we want, or categories that we want Turnitin to check for. So long as we have all those in check, we scroll down to the bottom, we click Submit. Okay, so it says okay, we've successfully added that assignment, And now I can go in and sort of look. It's going to be kind of probably piled down on this at the bottom. If I was a student, I would click on View Complete in order to submit that assignment. In this case here, I'm going to go in through Course Tools. So under Course Tools, Turnitin Assignments, and then I can find that assignment, and I might have to go to the second or even third page in this case. There it is there. And here it is. Here's the assignment inbox. There's no submissions, but the nice thing about this is that I could go in and take a look at the student's essay and look at the grading form and fill it in. Now, because this doesn't have a submission, I'm going to jump into a slightly different assignment for an example. And I'm going to just pick on, these are fake, so just in case you're thinking, oh, I'm giving out students information, I'm not. When I open up the student's assignment, on the right, sometimes it takes a little bit to load, so be patient. On the right, you're going to see the rubric option, and here it will say, this is a different style of rubric, so what I'll do is I'll open this up, and I will look at the new grading form. And I will just put in this again, so I apologize. Let's say research and content. And for the sake of time, I'm just going to leave it as one. I'm going to delete these. Yes. Yes. And here we go. So I say save. And you can have multiple ones. We'll put this as a example one. We'll click save. And then we're going to see right down here where it says attach. We're going to attach the rubric and we'll say, okay, now it's there. So what you get in a grading form is really simple. Now I can put in any grade that I want into this box. It's up to you. There's no limit. There's no minimum or maximum. It's great where you can just say, yeah, if it's out of 15, I can put a 10. And when I click apply to grade, it adds it all up. So if there was multiple sort of criterion in there, you can easily finesse your rubric into a grading form and allow for a quick sort of transfer of information. So that's how I would use rubrics in Turnitin. If you're looking for more information about how to actually create more of those larger rubrics, then please come to one of my sessions. And that is a little bit longer than 10 minutes, but that's my quick version of how to go in to create an assignment and add grading form. Matt, do you want to finish it off there?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Bert. Well, that's pretty much all that we have today. Thanks again for tuning in, watching, whatever device you're watching from. Again, this is one of our 3 and 30s. A lot more of these are going to be coming out over the next little while from not just myself, but our awesome team in the Center for Teaching and Learning. So again, have a great day. Thanks, Bert, for joining. I appreciate you jumping on in and talking about your Turnitin expertise. And we'll talk to you all soon. Thanks again.